Welcome to Unbelievable Stories. Today's story is full of shocking twists and real drama. Subscribe and like to stay updated. Let's dive in. Trust is a fragile thing, and mine was completely destroyed when I learned about my wife's affair with her boss. Naturally, I didn't stand idly by. My response to her betrayal was more than just words, it was physical too. But then, something unexpected happened that altered everything. This is my story, told honestly and without embellishment. Enjoy. Dad, it's Mom. Tom grinned as he accepted the phone from his daughter. He had a fair idea what the talk would be about, but it was his first with his wife. That morning, so he was looking forward to it. He overheard his wife, Anna, ask, "Hey baby, can my sweet teddy bear supervise a dozen teenagers today? I'd like to believe I can handle this. Emily and the girls have been planning this for several weeks, so all I have to do is follow their directions. She and her friends are 21 or 22, so not attempting to manage a group of toddlers." She asked, "Did you put up the pool the way she wanted it?" He responded, yes, there are chairs in the lounge, in the pub, at the grill, the food is prepared. I did it all while you were gone. Next year you'll be a chaperone. Don't tell me you weren't looking forward to this. There will be a dozen teenagers in bikinis all afternoon. I'm willing to wager that when I get home, you'll be ready for me. Don't forget, one of them is our daughter, 2 more of them are like surrogate daughters. I don't need to be surrounded by a dozen bikini-clad teenagers to be prepared for you. I'm always ready for you every day. I am sure you are, and I like it." He asked, "Have you had a good trip?" She responded, "We did. It was a worthwhile learning meeting." Anna worked for a mid-size financial firm in a Chicago suburb. She was a senior investment advisor who had been there for about 6 years. "That's wonderful, honey. Have a safe return trip from Atlanta." "Thanks, I will. Meet you later this afternoon. Love you, Anna." "I love you, Tom." Emily rolled her eyes at her father, though she was glad her parents still loved one another as much as they did. She aspired to be as in love with her husband after 25 years of marriage. Tom was lost in his own thoughts for a moment, thinking about Honey Bear. He had been a lover till the children were born, then he was daddy till their oldest child left for college. He has been her honey bear ever since. He didn't mind it too much. She enjoyed snuggling close to him, and told him she liked sleeping with him next to her. Was Honey Bear a so? Who could he complain to? He, his daughter, and her 2 best friends had spent the last few days preparing for the party. It was only 2 weeks till she and her friends began college classes. Most of them wanted a large celebration during their senior year before driving off to other parts of the country. She was beginning her senior year of medicine at Stanford University, roughly 20 miles north of her parents' home in Naperville, Illinois. She lived with her longtime best pals in an on-campus apartment. She was a really lovely girl who, like her mother, stood approximately 56 and was curvaceous. Nina and Sophie, the aforementioned best friends, stayed the night and had been assisting that morning. Nina was also a tall, thin, and handsome African-American with light pecan brown skin and beautifully long curled hair. At 5'10", she was a full inch taller than Tom, which she ruthlessly tormented. He did not mind. He adored her and loved having her around. She was like a sister to Emily and a second daughter to him. She and his daughter had been inseparable since 3rd grade. She was on a track and field scholarship at Rice, which covered a portion of her tuition. She ran the 800m, 100m, and mile. When she was younger, she used to run with Tom. However, when she grew older, he informed her that he could no longer run with her since he was holding her back. She missed running with him. She was a bright young lady who was majoring in math and computer science. Sophie, Emily's other best friend, was the first person she ever met on her first day of elementary school. Sophie had dropped her lunch, which their housekeeper had prepared for her, and Emily gave her half of it because her parents had always encouraged her to serve others. When Nina arrived, they formed their own version of the 3 Musketeers as they were almost inseparable. Sophie only received a 1500 on her SATs, but she was able to attend Rice thanks to her parents' money and previous connections. They joked that she could have gotten a 600 and still been admitted. As a prank in high school, rather than being voted most likely to succeed or receiving some other meaningless award, she was chosen the most likely to purchase an island. She was a little blonde doll with a cute body on her little 52 frame. They were a good group, much like three sisters. Tom enjoyed having the three of them there with him. An outdoor kitchen adjacent to the side of the two-story pool house is located underneath the backyard pavilion. Tom built almost everything himself throughout the years. They had the table ready to serve lunch, and the rest of their companions were expected to arrive shortly. It was a lovely September day, and the lounge chairs were set up. The pool was pristine, and Tom had mowed and trimmed the lawn. Emily appeared to have inherited her mother's organizational and event planning skills, and she had kept her father busy for the past 2 days. She was his little child, and she gushed about him whenever she had the chance. He was more embarrassed than boastful, and he was confident in his abilities but not to brag about them. She figured developing and maintaining his modest consulting firm would suffice for some men. She was unconcerned about what other men did. She knew the fathers of the bulk of the girls who came over, and if they had to vote on who had the finest dad, hers would most certainly receive the majority of first-place votes. After assisting to serve a beautiful spread of food and non-alcoholic beverages, Tom said, "Okay, ladies, I am going back inside. Let me know if you require anything." Nina asked, "Are you certain you don't want to stay out here and eat with us?" "Thank you, Nina. This is for everyone to enjoy." "I'm good." This afternoon was solely for the girls. Had kept himself busy in his office, from where he could see the pavilion and a section of the pool. When the girls began removing their cover-ups and garments to display their swimwear, he retreated to the den to watch the Astros lose another game so he wouldn't appear creepy. Had been watching for approximately 20 minutes when he heard a ruckus outside by the pool and went to investigate. He noticed a muscular young man holding Sophie's wrist and attempting to pull her away from her companions, who had surrounded them and yelled for him to stop. Tom dashed outside and approached the group, yelling, "Hey, asshole, let her go." The enormous guy, perhaps 63, saw Tom and smirked, not bothering to slow down as he pulled a protesting Sophie to the exit. Little Sophie didn't even weigh 115 pounds, and he was about twice her size. As Tom got near, asshole forced Nina out of the way, and she stumbled. Tom tried to catch her, but her tall figure collided with his nose and heart. For a split second, he saw stars, then recovered, and he dashed to be between Sophie, the intruder, and the gate leading into the driveway. "Let me go, Max," shouted Sophie. "Girls, get back." All of the other girls stepped away from the 3 people involved in the altercation, but only a short distance. Some people had their phones out filming. "I said let her go," Tom said. "Asshole." Tom came in close to Max, who thought that having 6 inches and 60 or 70 pounds on Tom meant he didn't have to worry about him. Because his right hand was gripping Sophie's wrist, he attempted to throw a left jab at Tom. That was his first error. Tom dodged low, and with momentum behind him, delivered a good punch to Max's solar plexus. A large flood of breath burst out of his mouth, and he leaned back, taking the impact and quickly releasing Sophie. Tom applied a strong knee to Max's nuts, forcing him to his hands and knees. "Get out of my backyard, asshole." Max cautiously rose to his feet and stated, "You're not as big as my old man said you were. I'm going to enjoy slamming you around." The large guy prepared to take another punch at Tom. However, it was telegraphed so far in advance that Tom had to wait before responding. It was evident that this individual had no training. Thankfully, Tom dove under the large roundhouse right hook. He pushed his right foot behind asshole's right leg as hard as he could. Max was already off balance from the botched swing, so he went backward over Tom's knee, landing hard on his back. Tom responded, "Just leave. I don't want to hurt you." Several of the young females laughed as the shorter man threatened the outmatched giant. Max's giggles didn't help as he climbed. "You move quite well for a teddy bear, although my dad refers to you as a small teddy bear." Tom wondered where he acquired his information. How would he know about Max? They came for him again, but Tom was growing irritated. He realized he needed to act before he lost his anger and his self-control. Max attempted to mimic a right jab but performed miserably when throwing a left punch. Tom avoided it. Tom was waiting for what would happen next. Another right hook that appeared to originate in Birmingham, and slowly zipped by Tom's head. As Max's arm passed over Tom's head, he moved in and delivered a deadly combo to asshole on his right side, which housed his kidneys and liver. Tom felt that was the hardest head ever hit someone with his hands. Max fell like a stone. It took him 45 seconds merely to get on his hands and knees. Nobody was laughing anymore as he forced himself onto his knees and prepared to stand. Tom grasped one of Asshole's hands behind his back and applied enough pressure to his fingers that they nearly shattered. Once he was on his feet, Tom led Max through the still-open gate and shoved him out into the driveway. After Tom let him go, Max moved like an old crippled man, with his sides supported. Max had had enough battling, but he wasn't finished talking. "You may call your wife darling, but my father refers to her as his sweet kitten." Surprised? Just because she says she's traveling doesn't imply she actually is. They occasionally stay in town so she can enjoy his large tool uninterrupted for a few days near home. Tom said, "You're correct. If you want to continue talking trash about my wife, we can go back into the backyard. Continue yapping, asshole. Anyway, I would not believe you even if you claimed you had proof. Now that you've been embarrassed, all you have are falsehoods. Well, see about that. I'll believe it once I see it in my hands." Tom gestured to his hand. "Even then, it's likely that someone will fake it." Max only smirked as Tom looked around. Max discovered Sophie's Tesla and hit the hood of her SUV hard enough with his fist to dent it. Tom finally noticed the sounds of the other girls yelling and gesturing at the young man. He had been so absorbed a few moments before that he didn't notice them. Max slumped into his Mercedes and walked away. Tom turned around to see many young ladies making very unladylike gestures toward Max while photographing the events on their cell phones. Tom announced, "Come on, ladies, the show is over. Back inside, please. Do not share that video with anyone yet. Let's discuss it for a few minutes first, okay?" He heard Emily exclaim, "Daddy, your nose is bleeding." In the next moment, Nina was yelling commands at everyone to make a place for Tom on a chaise lounge chair under one of the umbrellas. "Emily, go find him clean clothing. Sophie, grab him a bag of ice." She got him to sit down and started ripping his shirt off to press against his nose. The remaining 11 girls all had a good look at this really fit and lean man in his early 50s. They had never expected what they had just witnessed. Tom had about a dozen bikini-clad nurses who were eager to assist him, but with Nina in charge, that seemed doubtful. One of them dashed into the pavilion to grab him something to drink. Another attempted to ease him back so he could lie down. The rest were chatting about what had transpired while glancing at Tom. When Sophie and Emily returned, he placed the ice on his nose and inquired, "Who the hell was that asshole? Who would raise such a piece of shit, Sophie? What did he want from you?" Emily came in to respond to the first. "That asshole, Max Stanton, as you like to call him, is the son of David Stanton, Mom's boss." Shit. Those initial claims simply shifted from some stupid kid talking garbage to possibly a stupid kid who knows something. Fuck. He didn't want his concern to be known even to the others. Sophie explained, "He was chasing me because we went out just several weeks ago, and when he asked me out again, I declined. I tried to be pleasant, but he was not very nice about it. I'm sorry he came here. I'm not sure how he found me, but I believe one of the crew posted about today's party on social media." She implored with her pals to halt what they were doing. Looking back at Tom, she questioned, "Mr. Clark, how did your nose begin bleeding? Has he never touched you?" Tom stated, "I believe that was from when I attempted to apprehend my other daughter, Nina. She bumped into me on the side of her head. It hit my nose." He grinned at Nina. "I'm so sorry, Dad." Nina had been calling him Dad for many years. "When he pushed me, you were so close, and as you tried to catch me, we were entangled. I did not mean to bump your nose." Tom gripped her hand. "Do not worry. It was not your fault. It does not feel broken. I just noticed. Nina was glad to hear that. Tom expressed concern over the videos. I realize this is a lot to ask of you guys, but please do not share a video of what transpired with anyone outside of this group. No social media posts, emails, or text messages to your buddies. Nothing, please. Why, Daddy? You did nothing wrong. You could have seriously injured him if you wanted to, Emily inquired. He responded, in the first place, I do not want any smears against their mother to be spread. We know they're not true, but they still don't sound right. Also, someone with that type of rage would try to retaliate against Sophie, me, or any of us if that video went viral. Don't you see? Would he be embarrassed and seek retribution? He still might, but I'd hate for one of you to be leaving a movie theater or a college class late at night and have him sneak up behind you and attack you because he's furious, foolish, or intoxicated. Sure, he'd be jailed eventually, but with his temper, he may be deadly and cause lasting damage. Emily asked, Will you call the police? I'm afraid so. We don't need to determine whether to bring charges right now, but he assaulted Sophie and Nina and attempted to harm me. A few girls laughed at Max's effort to assault the smaller man. He also damaged the hood of Sophie's SUV and trespassed. I am sure there are other things. He'll have someone come out and take our statements. It should not take long. I apologize, but we have to do this. Can you still have your pool party? He asked Sophie, Is your wrist okay? Yes, I think so. He held it firmly, so it could bruise, but nothing else. Tom nodded. Sophie questioned Mr. C, Where did you learn to accomplish this? Max is a huge guy in good form. I know he has won a few battles. It's quite dull. Are you sure you want to hear this? A dozen bikini-clad women were shaking their heads up and down, not a bad sight to see. Tom shrugged. When I was in high school, I was periodically mocked for my height. My parents are both short, so I knew this was unlikely to change. I was always in fantastic shape because I did track in junior high, and then cross-country in high school. I was also really good, competing in the state finals. But one night while I was a junior, I went on a date with a nice girl, and when we were leaving the movie theater, a couple of enormous assholes like Max attempted to bother us. They did for a minute, but I attempted to ignore them and pushed my way forward. Being on a date, I didn't want to initiate anything, so I let them push me a little. Fortunately, a couple of my pals were also present. They saw what was going on and joined us, leaving only two assholes. We ended our date, and I headed home. I was quite angry. I informed my father about it, and the next day he helped me find a martial arts studio near their Austin home. He advised me, Be the best you can be, but if you ever get good, don't look for trouble. I vowed to defend you and others exclusively, and I took 2 lessons every week until I started college at UC Berkeley. While attending college in Boulder, I discovered a studio that taught a variety of disciplines, including Silat, a close combat style, as well as judo and jiu-jitsu. They did not follow a specific style because their primary focus was self-defense. I trained there for 4 years of college. The instructor was a very old man about my height, and his daughter was about my size, in her late 30s. He commanded the school alongside his daughter, who was the most incredible warrior I'd ever seen, fast, fearless, and deadly. I watched her spar against large, swift black belts, and they hardly touched her. They typically wished they hadn't. I knew I wanted to learn from her, so for 4 years, I took 2 or 4 lessons per week. I was doing well for a while. He was modest. When I married Anna, we still lived in Boulder, but I reduced my lessons to 1 per week. She has never seen me in a match during our entire marriage. She knows I practice in our basement gym, but that's all. Emily, when you entered college a few years ago, I discovered a nearby studio and resumed studying. I am not as good as I once was, but I still do okay. Emily replied, Daddy, I never realized. You didn't have to, darling. Emily, do you remember when we took you and John to Rome when he was in 10th grade and you were in 7th? She nodded. Do you remember the time we drove out to that Moroccan restaurant in the shadowy part of town? She nodded again. I told your mother I didn't want to go there because I didn't think it was a secure place to be at night. Of course, she disagreed. The conversation became heated after a time, but I eventually succumbed, as I usually do. It was an excellent restaurant. I enjoyed it. Do you remember what happened on the way back to the car? Emily responded. 2 males, a tall and a short one, approached us from behind and yelled at us to stop. You gave Mom the keys and directed her to escort us to the car and start honking once we got inside. That's correct. While the 3 of you escaped, I was preparing to stop or slow them down. If I wasn't there immediately, I knew she'd contact the cops, but I was curious how long it would have taken for them to arrive in that part of town. After you departed, the tall one took out a knife and said, "Money?" I doubt he spoke much English beyond that. I raised my hands as if I didn't want any difficulty. But ultimately, he got close enough that I had to confront him. I kept him between myself and the short guy. I instantly stole his knife from him and inserted it into the side of his knee. I'm amazed you didn't hear the scream he let out. As the short guy pulled his own knife, I struck him, and his knife dropped away from us. While the tall guy's screaming piqued the interest of several of their pals who began running towards us, at this point, I started racing towards the car, hoping you were inside. I felt in control with the first 2 people, but there were 6 or 7 more headed my way. I decided caution was the greater part of valor, so it was time for me to depart. When I heard the horn, I dashed towards the car. Your mother had pulled onto the street, ready to depart. I got into the front seat and instructed her to punch it. Since we've been married, that was the only other time I had encountered anything like that until today. That was a tiny falsehood. What he didn't tell them was that after John and Emily were born, shortly before they relocated to Dallas, he and Anna went dancing one night while still living in Boulder. Chris Taylor, her former college boyfriend and Texas Longhorns football player, contacted them. Anna seemed unconcerned, but Tom was furious when he asked Anna to dance, and she agreed. They just danced for a few minutes, but when Tom noticed him go into the restroom, he followed the jock. A wide receiver at Max's height sneered at Tom and began talking about how much he missed Anna and perhaps they dance a little more that evening. Tom wasn't in the mood because the old flame was going to push him out of the way to exit the lavatory. Tom slammed him to the floor. The huge guy fell at an unexpected angle, landed on his arm, and shattered his collarbone at the elbow, thereby ending his season. The Longhorns brought in a substitute who performed so well that Chris was eventually traded to another team. There were no charges filed. Tom proceeded with his companions. So please don't send that footage to anyone. Before the end of the day, there should only be 13 copies, including myself, and never more. They all promised Tom not to send it to anyone. He hoped they intended it. I realize this dampens the mood, but don't let it. He's an asshole. Forget him. Nina said, "You mean he's an asshole?" Tom grinned, and several of the girls giggled. He stood up and went inside to contact the cops. When the police came, he was greeted by all those attractive women in their swimwear. They hastily covered up, and he asked them to describe what had transpired. He checked Sophie's wrist, which was still red but not seriously wounded. Tom's nose had stopped bleeding, thus he had transformed. Sophie's mother had come over because her father had not yet returned from a trip. The entire discussion only lasted 30 to 40 minutes. The celebration resumed once the police car drew away. Sophie hugged her mother and watched as she drove away. Emily also approached Tom and asked, "Dad, do you mind if we stay here until we go to Sophie's? We plan to go dancing after supper, but after this afternoon, we'd rather dance here tonight." "It's your home, Emily. You know I do not mind. I adore having you here." She hugged her father and rejoined her friends. Tom caught the final inning of the Rangers game. They were obviously losing while he was watching. He got an SMS from Anna. The plane was delayed. "We will be home late." He exhaled. That small seed of doubt was beginning to trouble him, and he despised how some of Max's statements hit so close to home. He needed his wife to come home so that they could discuss, Tom danced with some more of his friends, or more accurately, they were dancing beside him. They attempted to teach him the electric slide again, but he never quite got it right, which amused everyone, including Tom. Around 10 p.m., they needed to travel to Sophie's house, which had a lot of bedrooms. Tom had really sweet hugs, kisses, and thank yous from all the young girls as they went. After a little assistance, it did not take long to tidy up outside. He heard the garage door open as he was emptying the garbage cans. Anna was home. He stepped out to assist her with her bag, and she gave him a warm hug and a short kiss on the lips as he approached. She said, "I miss you, baby." "How was the party?" "It was intriguing. I'll explain that in a minute." They had just left to go to Sophie's for the night. "I assumed they were going out dancing," he added. "They chose to dance here. I'm sure you noticed that. Have you turned off the light and watched them from inside?" That upset him slightly, but he responded, "No, Nina took me outside with her, and I danced with the majority of them before they left. If I weren't so exhausted after the cross-country journey and delays, I'm sure you'd be in a great mood right now. I would be delighted to take care of you." Tom wasn't in the mood either. He said, "Let me get your bag inside and pour you a glass of wine. I have quite a story to tell you." She was intrigued by what had transpired and followed him inside. When he returned to the living room, she sipped her wine and watched him sit across from her rather than beside her. She snickered, assuming this was serious. Tom went on to detail what transpired, including phoning the police but omitting Max's dialogue. She was stunned that someone could just barge into their property and harm innocent Sophie. Tom then revealed the identity of the assailant. "His name is Max Stanton. David's nickname is Max." Anna's expression was one of shock and amazement. "No way. I can't believe he'd do that. There must be an error." Tom stated explicitly that David forgot to teach him a few things. Then he pondered about things like politeness, respect, how to fight, and when to close his massive trap. Anna paused for a second. "Wait a minute, Rick is big. Do you mean you took him out of the backyard like trash?" She let out a little giggle. She giggled some more, and then she began giggling. "What?" she said. "You are making this up, correct? My hubby, all 165 pounds of you, smashed that tank. He appears to be around twice your size." "Okay, what is the joke?" Tom wasn't as amused. She saw his dejected expression and urged, "Come on, Tom. I'm not trying to hurt your feelings, but be realistic." Tom stood and said, "Good night, Anna. Do not pout, sweetheart. I do not mean that negatively. How else could he handle it? I'll be there once I finish this glass." She was astounded when he responded, "Do not bother." Anna yelled out to him as she went into the kitchen to place her glass in the sink, but he did not respond. When she went upstairs to their bedroom, he was not there. He was in the guest room. She asked, "Tom, what are you doing in here?" "I miss you and was going to snuggle with my teddy bear tonight." "Teddy bear?" He was now curious as to why she was using that pet name. Was it a term of fondness or derision? He could explode over her usage of the term right now, but he was emotionally fatigued and needed a clear mind to consider things through in the morning. He answered, "Well, I suppose we'll both be disappointed then." He closed and locked the door. After a few minutes of pounding and pleading, she eventually left and walked to their bedroom, perplexed by the change of events. Her husband seems to be losing his head. She thought of texting her daughter to find out more, but it was late. She'd see her in the morning. Besides, her spouse couldn't possibly accomplish what he stated. It was not doable. Tom figured she'd sleep late the next morning after a long travel and a few days on West Coast time. He wondered if she had gone on a trip, which upset him because he was now questioning everything. He sneaked into their bedroom and fetched some jogging clothing, after which he changed and ate a small breakfast. When he heard her start to move, he went for a long run, covering 7 miles in just under 53 minutes. Later, he returned. Anna didn't look happy when he walked in. "Mister, we need to chat. I don't think you told me the entire thing last night." He ignored her and went into the shower. She followed, But once inside the bathroom, he locked the door behind him. She pounded on the door, but he continued with his shower and shave. Once dressed and refreshed, he prepared to confront his wife. He went downstairs to enter his home office. She was already waiting for him. David called me this morning. I'm not sure I understood the entire story last night. Max had blood in his urine and had to go to the ER late yesterday. It couldn't happen to a nicer guy. She said. Max told David that he was just talking to Sophie when you suddenly appeared behind him and whacked him in the back with something. They suspect you bruised a kidney. David wishes to pursue charges. Tom responded, why am I not surprised that the little asshole lies about the incident? He's probably humiliated that your tiny teddy bear threw him out like rubbish, as you said. David is quite angry. Why did you do that? Why did you attack him? I attacked the unfortunate boy because he was attacking Sophie. You know, the Sophie we've loved as if she were our own daughter for more than a decade. We took Sophie, Emily, and Nina to Spain for 2 weeks to celebrate Emily and their high school graduations. That same Sophie was being dragged out of our backyard by that disrespectful piece of shit, and I stopped it. Are you suggesting you believe their tale but not your husband's? Do you think I sucker punched him? Anna stated. I apologized, Tom. No way could you do it face to face. Tom wanted to throw something in her face. How the hell could that foolish kid know what he knew? Tom was furious that he had to let that slide for the time being because all he had was Max's hearsay and insufficient evidence to accuse her of anything without her easily evading the accusation. And if true, she will be more cautious in the future. The entire scenario stunk. But if the accusations were true, they were done. So you don't think I could do it face to face, Manto Man? No offense, honey, I love you like no one else. But he's massive, enduring, amazing shape. But you're no match for him. Remember Rome? You were sprinting as fast as you could with that small guy chasing you, trying to get to the car before he caught you. That was after I dealt with the large guy. He was not going to capture me, and I was sprinting because Tom stopped. It was pointless. It was immediately evident what she thought of him regaling a hard-fought and successful battle. Battles wouldn't be effective. He could see it was already a lost cause, maybe in more ways than one. She added, do you have any concept of how tough this will make my life? That surprised Tom. Excuse me? What was I supposed to do? Would you prefer to have used a gun? I'd like to know what you hit him with. My hands, he responded. Shit. I've seen you work out in our basement gym. You make a strong effort to get the bag, but I don't understand how you could have wounded Max by simply hitting him. How could you have gotten a clean shot without sneaking up on him? Thanks for your faith, sweetie. It boosts your confidence. In case you didn't pick up on it, that was sarcasm. Exaggeratedly, she rolled her eyes and moaned, come on, that is not helping. What do I tell David? You tell him that he raised his piece of shit son to be an asshole, seems like him, and Max needs to apologize to both Sophie and me. I want. Max informed him what happened, and it appears you did nothing wrong. Tom shook his head. You must be insane to believe him over your hubby. Did David give you any drugs while you were traveling? Anna's expression was furious at the insult, and he was going to respond when they heard a vehicle come up and honk its horn. Thank you for the reprieve. They stood to see who was present. It was a large SUV, and people departed the vehicle. Emily, Nina, Sophie, and her father, Mark. All three of the girls went up and hugged Tom, then Anna. A bit later, Mark stepped up and shook his hand. Tom, I'd like to thank you for watching after Sophie. It means a lot to me that you would do this. She is everything to me. I will be forever thankful. Tom shrugged his shoulders, uncomfortable with the compliment. You know we adore Sophie. No way was I going to let that asshole go with her. This wasn't going to happen. You'd have done the same. Mark nodded, and Anna said, girls, could you please explain what happened? Max told his father a different version of events than Tom told me. Emily asked, you're receiving 2 separate stories, and you don't believe Dad? Well, not quite. That's not what I'm saying. I just prefer to hear it from someone else. I'm not sure how that all sounds. Preposterous. Tom shook his head and walked back inside. He would not remain there long while the girls narrated the entire scene to Anna. Tom grabbed his laptop and an overnight bag. He was getting away before he said anything that he couldn't take back. He needed time to ponder what he was going to do next. When Tom returned outside, Mark, Sophie, and Nina were gone, leaving Anna dumbfounded. How could her spouse have done this? When he saw the shock on his wife's face, he realized how far he had fallen, especially given her attention to how this affected her and her profession, not him, his daughter, or Sophie. It spoke volumes. Tom inquired, "So what are we going to do about that asshole? Someone needs to educate him proper manners." Anna scoffed. "And you believe you're going to be the one to accomplish it?" Tom could not believe it. She had just heard 3 individuals support his account, but she still didn't believe he was capable of handling it. Asshole. She must believe her husband is some kind of coward. She said, "He's probably pretty furious." Tom smirked, thinking that Max was probably still pissing blood. The next thing she uttered killed him. I doubt he'd be as lucky the following time. The expression on Tom's face warned her she had gone too far. She meant it, and was simply trying to protect her spouse from harm. How could he confront such a huge, strong young man directly? She watched as his countenance changed from disbelief to wrath. "When did you lose all respect for me as a man, Anna? You didn't always treat me like this. You used to have faith in me. I see that is now gone. You are being silly. My feelings for you have not changed. I'm proud of you and everything we've done together. So call me skeptical. Did you know I have clever executives from many Fortune 500 businesses on my contacts app? These people contact me at my company when they require assistance. That's how I make a living. My company may not be as successful as David's, but my employees and I are well respected in our sector. Apparently, I receive far more respect than I do at home. These previous couple of days have been incredibly informative when it comes to what you think of me. What does this mean? Not to worry about. I have made a decision. If that piece of shit, either him or his father, isn't here at 6 p.m. tomorrow to apologize to myself and Sophie, then Mark and I will contact the police and file charges. He has to pay for the hood of her SUV as well. You can't be serious. I still need to work with David. Perhaps you can persuade him to teach his son good manners and to respect others. Clearly, he hasn't learned that from his dad, but given how much time you spend with him, I'm sure you're aware of this. Tom, this could jeopardize my employment. So, Anna, see what this is doing to us, but it does not appear that you perceive it this way. Tomorrow at 6 p.m., Mark and I are phoning the cops. And going out for a while. No, you're not. We're not finished talking about this. We are completed, and I need to be apart from you. I'm going over to Mark's to discuss this. I'm not calling them assholes father because he listens to you. You can inform him what his child needs to do to avoid jail time. The clock is ticking. Tom, come back here. He ignored her, walked into the garage, put his bag in his car, and drove away with Anna standing there with her hands on her hips and an exasperated grimace on her face. Tom had never done anything like this. When driving to Mark's, Tom also determined that he needed to do some traveling for his business. What he worried was that based on his wife's reaction and hers and Max's statements, she had already succumbed to David. Traveling would take him away from her and give him a chance to observe how connected she was with David. At this point, he believed the foolish kid. Damn you, Anna. Mark and Tom chatted and agreed on 6 p.m. they'd either contact the cops or wait until tomorrow. Tom went to a local hotel and sat at the desk, working while the Rangers game played in the background. Around 5 p.m., his phone rang. He had banned Anna's phone number on the home phone so he could enjoy some solitude. He wondered who it was. Hello? Hey, Dad. Hi, Emily, she said. I'm driving back to the apartment. Are you nearby at Rice? Emily shared a college apartment with Sophie and Nina. All Rice undergraduates are obliged to reside on campus. When campus housing requests appeared to be selected by the draw, The three undergraduates living together in one of those very good flats was an unusual arrangement. Supposedly, there is an extremely complicated selection process for getting into one of those prized flats. He assumed Mark merely inquired how much he needed to pay to the institution to make it happen, and it occurred. Mark and his wife were born with money, a lot of old-school money. He also did well in entertainment law in Chicago. He hailed from a long line of Chicagos and had made large contributions to the Chicago Medical Center in Texas, the county seat. Pete, I'm at the house, and there's plenty of room for 13. I will be there in a few minutes. 10 minutes later, he heard a knock at the door. When he opened it, Emily hugged him tightly. I do not understand, Daddy. Why would Mom believe him over you? I'd say she doesn't believe I can defend my family. Emily said she should. I informed her about Rome. Tom shrugged. Let me guess, she did not believe you. Emily shook her head, and he could see a tear leak from her eye. I'm sorry, baby. Maybe great big David convinced her that I didn't quite measure up. I do not know. You don't believe what that asshole said, do you? For the second time, he wanted to explain that he believed Anna had lost all respect for him as a man because she was most certainly screwing someone much bigger than him. He wanted to tell his daughter that it appeared that her mother was a 304, but he didn't say that. He denied everything, saying he was just talking garbage. Tom despised lying to his daughter, but he didn't want her to think such things about her mother. They may turn out to be true, and while things did not appear to be going well, this was only supposition at the moment. Do not worry, sweetheart. Everything will be okay. You'll see. She said, I want to believe you, Daddy. Yet I am afraid. Do not be. Well, be okay. She wondered if Mom and him were a family. She left a few minutes later. School would restart in several weeks, and she had her summer internship at the University Medical Center that had a few more days remaining. The next day, he checked his home security app on his phone to see when the garage doors opened and closed, marking when Anna had departed for work. Running your own small consulting firm had the advantage of allowing you to work from home when you weren't traveling. The downside was that you couldn't flee to the office if you were fighting with your wife. Finally, at lunch, he examined his messages. He received 20 texts from his wife, some of which were pretty long. Most of them were about his outrageous behavior. The last one stated, "You've gone too far. He'll arrive at 6. I left you a voicemail." After he checked his voicemail, he ignored all of them, which he would eventually delete, but listened to the final one. Tom, David mentioned that Max would be there a few minutes before 6 tonight to apologize. I'm still not happy with you for placing me in this situation. We can discuss that after everyone has left. Tom rolled his eyes. It was still his fault. He was scheduled to drive up to Nashville, Kentucky, to conduct an operations planning whiteboarding session for one of his clients all day Thursday and Wednesday morning. He resolved to drive there tonight after the apologies and arrive a few days early. He would cover one hotel night himself and meet with the client in person on Wednesday. At 5:45 p.m., Mark and Sophie came. She gave Tom a hearty embrace, and Mark shook his hand, saying, "This should be interesting. Are you and Anna okay? It seemed like this was putting you in a difficult situation. There's nothing to worry about. We will be." She's trying to grasp her brain around her little hubby beating up huge Big Macs. I'll admit that I was astonished by how convincingly you did it rather than that you did it at all. I suppose I shouldn't have been. You've always seemed well prepared in everything you do. Thank you, Mark. Hopefully, Anna will remember this as well. If you don't mind, well, wait outside since I don't want that piece of garbage in my home. I wouldn't either. A few minutes before 6 p.m., a red two-door Tesla drove into their driveway. Max did not look delighted when he got out. Anna still had not arrived. He approached the three of them standing there and said, "Sophie, I apologize for Saturday. I miss you and wanted us to get out again. I know we won't be going out again, but I hope I didn't ruin our friendship. I'm sorry." He appeared sorry, but Tom suspected he was simply searching for an opportunity to get into her trousers someday. Sophie remarked. I am not sure if we will ever be friends again, Max, but I will try to be polite and friendly. That's the best I can do right now. I understand. Max turned to face Mark. Mr. Chicago, I apologize for what I did to Sophie and her SUV. Just send us the bill, and we'll take care of it. The words, I'm sorry, were whatever he said. He didn't appear to be sorry. Mark merely nodded. When Max looked at Tom, the contriteness had vanished. Mr. Clark, I apologize for disrupting the party and intruding on your property. I shouldn't have done that. Okay, Max? Thank you. I suppose we're done here. Before Max turned to walk back to his car, when he reached the car door, he wore a smirk that everyone could see. He looked at Tom and mouthed the word kitten. Tom opened his hand and pointed to it like he did on Saturday, indicating that he believed him once he saw the evidence. Max grinned and climbed into his car. Mark replied, well, his apology to Sophie appeared sincere, but ours did not. What did he say to you before he drove off? Tom shook his head. Nothing significant. We had a conversation while he was leaving the other day. He was bringing it up to try to irritate me again. Sophie wanted to say something, but she regretted agreeing to go out with him in the first place. What a horrible decision, Mark stated. So if you need any assistance with him, please let me know. With a single phone call, I can assemble a legal team to represent him and his father. I might even recruit a deputy or two to shadow him over a couple of weekends. That may prove entertaining. He smiled at that thought. Thank you, Mark. Let's hold off on it for now. I have a few other issues I need to address first. Mark nodded. After dropping off Emily at home yesterday, Sophie notified her parents about Max's unpleasant remarks about Anna. They'd known Anna for years. None of them believed he was telling the truth. At least they hoped so. Mark and Tom shook hands. Sophie gave him a final embrace, and they drove away. Tom unlocked the garage and drove away. After they departed, Anna's automobile approached as he pulled out of his driveway. Tom did not even try to wave as he pointed his car north toward Nashville. He would utilize the time to decide what he was going to do about gathering evidence. In one way or another, most importantly, he needed to get away. He was still furious with his wife for the disrespect, and with Max's charges on top of that. He knew he'd be unable to refrain from saying something he'd later regret. He would utilize the time apart to calm himself and prepare. 10 minutes later, his phone rang. He debated not responding but felt there was nothing to lose except the frustration. Maybe he could convince her to leave him alone while he was gone. Hello, Anna? Tom, I hope you're just going to the grocery and returning right back. No. My client needed me to arrive in Nashville a few days early. He'll stay until after I have lunch with him on Thursday. I should be home in time to have dinner with you after that. Then he decided to do a little digging. That assumes you will not be traveling with David this weekend. The comment took her by surprise. What? No. I only travel every 6 to 8 weeks. Why are you saying that? It is nothing. If you had been there on Saturday, you would have witnessed the entire event. I'm still a little upset you've taken Max's side. I am sure you are, and I'm sorry. David isn't very happy either, but that is understandable. Did Max show up to apologize? Tom stated, he appeared to sincerely apologize to Sophie, but I assume that was because he'd still want to try to have sex with her someday. He apologized to Mark and me, but it was the most phony apology I've ever gotten. You and David should feel relieved that he isn't going to jail. He's only a kid, Tom. He is a 20-year-old man who has to learn to control his anger and respect others. Anna gave an audible sigh. I would like to chat with you about all of this tonight. Can we chat when you arrive home on Thursday? Sure. I'll miss you, Tom. Tom thought that she wouldn't have a nice week. Anna. He then hung up the telephone. Anna was astonished by the way he finished their chat. This was upsetting her kind husband, and she still felt he wasn't very aware of how the circumstance affected her career. She thought this would simply be a hiccup in their long journey together. On Thursday, She made him a nice meal and intended to offer him a good night's sleep in the bedroom. This would all blow over. It took slightly over 2 hours to get to Nashville. Plenty of time to think about what he needed to do. He was confident that the brat Max knew too much for it to be idle chatter. It said little about his father that he would share such information with his son. But if David is the type of man who sleeps with married women, it's not surprising that he's not the best father. The only thing he really suspected was that Anna and David cheated while on vacation. Of course, they may be having sex in town, as Max suggested. David was divorced, so they wouldn't need a motel. Damn. However, he suspected Max would be seeking evidence to rub Tom's nose in it. He could try to fake something, but Tom would be on the alert for that. Tom planned to travel as much as he could over the next few weeks. If she cheated when he was out of town, then the two of them might be careless and do it at home. David seemed like just enough of an asshole to want to try it, and Anna appeared to be so loyal to David that she might allow it. Perhaps he should hire a person and have them followed. He sighed, unable to comprehend what had happened, but Anna's contempt for him was surprising. He was curious how long he had been blinded by his love for his wife. He went to Amazon immediately after checking into his hotel. He created a new account and ordered many different hidden Wi-Fi cameras, which he plans to install throughout his home. They would be delivered on Thursday to his hotel. Hopefully, they won't record anything, but he didn't like the odds. It was a long week for everyone. Emily contacted her dad a couple of times, and he told her he was all right. John called once to check on him, and Tom told him the same thing. Everything was fine. Anna left text and voice messages telling him how much she loved and missed him. They were conveniently left while Tom was with his clients. He was glad about that because he didn't want to talk to Anna. On Thursday, he drove 2 hours home, dreading what awaited him. However, it went better than intended. Anna was dressed properly when he came with a pretty dress that hit just above her knees. She was wearing high heels and good jewelry, which Tom assumed meant she wanted to go out to dinner. In her heels, she was the same height as him, which never disturbed him. He always enjoyed having her on his arm. That night, he was fine with her going out because it would put her in a good mood and likely avoid any conversation from becoming serious until they got home. He dressed quickly, and she requested him to take them to a swanky steak establishment that she knew he liked. Like the evenings when they would attend performances, she spent the entire night on his arm, cheesed off one of her shoes, and stroked his leg beneath the table. He despised the fact that she could have such an effect on him while he was still angry. He pondered how many more evenings like this would come, hoping he was mistaken but knowing his suspicions were correct. When they arrived home, she was all over him the moment they came through the door. They hadn't made it past the family room before she had taken down her dress and thong and was on his zipper. Standing there in her garters and heels had the desired impact on Tom. Anna didn't object when he dragged her up, spun her around, and screwed her while she was lying on the couch. She dragged him up the stairs to the bedroom and did it again. Again, that was fantastic. I needed it, Tom. I love you. He hugged his wife and said, I loved you too, Anna. She forgot the verb tense. After lying on him for a few more minutes and going to the restroom to prepare for bed, when she returned to the bedroom, she spooned back into her husband, wrapped his arm around herself, and fell asleep contentedly, certain that everything was fine in the world. The following morning, Anna was already up and painting circles on her husband's chest. Once she could tell he was well and awake, she murmured, Thank you for last night. It was a good night. He had to admit it was really wonderful. My pleasure, sweetheart. The words sweetheart reminded him of what Max had said. Anna continued, I need to tell you something, but I hope you won't be too upset. I need to travel to Atlanta on Thursday to meet with one of our university clients. They want a comprehensive examination of their portfolio. I should be returning on Thursday. How did this occur? Aren't these scheduled a little more in advance? She responded, Normally they do, but a competitor has been talking to them, and they are one of my top clients. So, David has asked me to go speak some sense into them. So you're going alone this time? I am. They've been with me a long time, so everything should be fine. He sat silently for a minute, contemplating. She questioned him, "Are you okay?" He replied, "Yeah, I am. In a similar situation, I have to travel next weekend and all the following week. Boeing VP of Supply Chain over their Airbus division has invited me to a supply chain information technology meeting. I attended a conference with him in Miami, then I'll be with them at their Charlotte facility the remainder of the week." She sat up at that realization, allowing herself to become uncovered, which looked wonderful as her chest was still jiggling once she was sitting. Not caring much about anything else anymore, Tom reacted by bringing her closer to him so he could start kissing. Tom had always admired her figure because she was still curvaceous and had a full chest to match. Anna wanted to hear more about his remarkable vacation. Slow morning sex followed by a good shower had become uncommon for them in recent years, and they both relished the opportunity. She resented that they didn't do it more often, but she recognized that it was also her responsibility. Tom despised the idea that everything was about to come to a horrible conclusion. She didn't want to ask during breakfast, but she did anyway. "Tom, we did not talk about last weekend. Are we okay? I hope you understand how much I adore you. We need to find a way out of this because I have long-term ambitions for you and me." He grinned and squeezed her hand. "I would enjoy that as well, Anna, albeit he didn't expect it to happen." He needed to give her credit. She tried all weekend and early the next week to love him, not simply with sex, as much as she had in many, many years. He did his best to reciprocate, but he honestly believed the end was near. Over the weekend, he planted a small GPS tracker on her car to determine where she went. He took all of the Amazon shipments that had been hidden in his car's trunk and arranged them. He replaced smoke detectors, books on shelves, and wall receptacles with gadgets that included hidden Wi-Fi cameras and microphones. He expanded his security system by installing a few exterior cameras. His home was now entirely video and soundproof, and instead of being prepared, he felt miserable. Anna kissed him goodbye on Wednesday morning, and he inquired if she would drive her car to Atlanta or rent one. "I will take mine. Do not worry, the employer will reimburse my mileage, and I will be safer driving my automobile." "Okay, be careful." "I will, baby. Love you. I adore you too." It didn't take long to confirm his fears. A few hours later, when she should have been at their Brentwood office or on I-40 heading to Atlanta, the GPS in her car showed her at David's house. His marriage was officially ended. Tom needed to blow off some steam, so he went to his dojo to spar with whoever was present and then work out. He wanted to be sharp because if he ever had the opportunity, he'd make David pay physically. So much for self-defense only. "Thank you again, Anna." Anna did him the courtesy of texting him later that day to let him know she had arrived safely in Atlanta. The GPS still showed her vehicle at David's residence. He prepared for his phony trip to Miami and decided he would phone tomorrow to find a way to tell his wife. He didn't need to bother. Early Wednesday morning, an email was delivered to his company email address with the subject Kitty Bear. The message stated, "I found your email on your website. I've been working on my father, and he warned me that before long, he'll be banging her too." There was a link to a cloud account that had hours and hours of video from multiple cameras in David's home. It appeared to have been recently set up and was capturing events in real time. He watched the first recorded feed and saw Anna and David enter the house. David started undressing her in the family room, and much like Tom the previous Thursday night, David had Anna bent over his couch, screwing her. Tom had seen enough. He drove up to the airport, parked in long-term parking, called his wife, and was routed to voicemail as expected. He left a voicemail stating, "I am at the airport and leaving now. I will text you while I am gone." With the background noise from the airport, it would sound like he was flying. Hang out soon. He did not fly anywhere. He went to the airport Marriott to hang out and review some of the evidence he had on his wife. Stupid kid. Tom didn't need or want to see them have sex one time over the back of the couch. That was sufficient. Actually, simply seeing her automobile at David's house overnight was enough. He was curious about what they might say, however. It was soul crushing even without watching the film. He had to endure the moaning, groaning, slapping, and slurping, but he ultimately learned numerous important bits of information. First and foremost, Andrew, I understand that you are upset today and tomorrow, but it is not necessary for you to try to regain. I am aware of this. Why would I need to recover something that is already mine? I'm still upset that Max had to apologize. You must learn to better handle your tiny husband. I've been restraining myself from him as you requested. She lied. He let out a loud thunderclap. I ask you to do what I tell you. If you want all of the advantages that come with me. She was getting tired of this controlling and possessive conduct. She was very positive that Andrew was approaching his expiration date if she wanted to keep her marriage together. I know that I like being with you, but I love Tom. He's a good father and a good husband. I'm not giving him up either. He and I are planning to ride off into the sunset together. Why are you screwing me if you love him so much? She smiled at him. You understand why. You miss being with a big man. I understand it's a baby. No, it's not your big tool, though I am not complaining. He's an excellent lover. I just don't know. Sometimes I like being with someone who I can still look up to when I'm wearing my heels. I like to wear a man's t-shirt that hangs below my buttocks. I adore placing my hand on your biceps and feeling something more than just lean. When you and I go down the street, I never worry about someone approaching you and initiating a fight. After working with you for so many years, I was reminded that I had missed it from time to time. Don't worry, my sweetheart. You keep taking care of me, and I will continue to take care of you. However, if you are unable to keep him in line, I may need to speak with him. I'm still mad at him for sucker punching Max. She admitted. You will not. If you attempt to injure even a single hair on his head, you will regret it. You won't hurt my hubby. Do you hear me? This astonished both Andrew and Tom. Andrew replied, Fine, fine. If he means that much to you, I will not hurt the small man. But don't forget who you belong to. That sentence irritated her because she did not belong anywhere. But if she did, it was for her husband. Also, get him under control. I don't want him to sneak up and smack me in the back. That would not go well for him. She said, I told you that the females told me you did not do that. I'm not sure how, but he apparently beat him fair and square. Andrew laughed. I'm sure they just confirmed their stories. That little kitty would never be able to beat Max. No way. He is not a kitten. But if he is, he's my cat bear. You allowed me to manage him. Andrew laughed. For the time being. I'll be content as long as I get to handle you. She wondered what he meant by for now. She did not have to wait long. The second fascinating exchange occurred after he left the note at the airport. Tom anticipated what would happen based on Andrew's attitude. Anna stated, Well, he's gone for a week. Andrew's smile was not pretty when he said, Outstanding. We can now take a couple more days off and continue to screw. Anna responded, Yes. No. If you keep screwing me so hard, you'll bruise me. How will I explain that to him? Well, you weren't supposed to screw him very much, if ever. So how will he see it? He still notices me getting dressed. You told me you like it when I tease him. Andrew smiled at the concept. Well, if we get to have sex for the next week, you should keep it away for a few days. Otherwise, he would notice how exhausted you are. She said, A cool bath and 24 hours generally suffice for me to tighten back up. Besides, he's not much smaller than you. Andrew did not want to hear that. Taking authority, he stated, This is what we will do. It'll be as kind as you want, but not in my house or while we're traveling. I will screw you whenever I want. If we are at your house, I will be as sweet as your adorable little hubby. You stated he wouldn't return until next Thursday night. This concerned Anna. She and Andrew had never had sex at her house before. I'm not convinced that is a good idea. Do you remember what I said yesterday? You do what I say, and everything will be good. If it bothers you so much, I want sleep at your house. Well, just have a few long lunches there that will appear very harmless. Anna hesitated for a few moments, but eventually joined. Tom is in Miami and Charlotte. He should be okay. He would only phone me for a few minutes each morning and night to check on me. Okay, only long meals. This merely reinforced to her that she needed to leave Andrew, and soon. But how? Andrew's nasty smile emerged as he realized she would have a difficult time getting him out once he was inside the house. Andrew wasn't bothered about Tom arriving early. He could deal with irate spouses, especially ones the size of Tom. He copied all of the videos that were in the cloud folder. Once they had left Andrew's residence, he would destroy the server files, leaving Tom with the sole copies unless Max saved them somewhere else. Tom had numerous calls to make. It was Thursday afternoon, so he hoped people were still working. His first call was to Mark. Hey Mark, this is Tom. Just a moment. Sure, buddy. I have several. What's up? Remember the chat we were having at my house when Max arrived to apologize? I do. Tom stated. Max's claims appear to be true. Anna has been having an affair. I'm not sure how long this has been going on, but it's been a while. Man, I'm very sorry. I assume this isn't a social call. I'm afraid not. I need a favor. I need an excellent divorce attorney quickly. Mark answered. Done? I only know the woman. She can be cruel and vicious or simply get it over with, whatever you prefer. Let me give her your information, and she will make time for you today. That sounds great. Also, please instruct Isabella not to mention anything to anyone. I know you don't keep secrets from her, so please keep this quiet until I give Anna the documents, possibly next week. Sure, Tom. I am sad for both of you. We have always liked you and Anna. Thank you, Mark. I'm sorry too. I owe you? No, you do not. We've been friends for a long time, and so have our girls. This is just me assisting a friend. When all is said and done, you are welcome to buy me a beer or two. I think I'd enjoy that. Consider it finished. Mark put their family lawyer, Rebecca, in touch with Tom, and she started preparing divorce papers that evening. He noticed Anna's automobile had returned to their home, and just as Tom was about to fall asleep, his phone rang. It was Anna. Hello, Peter. How's Miami doing? Hot and humid with a risk of rain, which is quite typical for late September. How about Atlanta? You mean Nashville? I got back this afternoon. It is lonely without you. I wish we had another Thursday night like last Thursday night. Yes, I'd like it too. Tom wished he could return to a month or so ago when he believed his wife was faithful and have a night like last Thursday. However, there was no going back. They talked for a few more minutes before she proclaimed her feelings for him. Tom, I love you. Anna, I love you too. He was quite sad when he disconnected the call, but the more he considered it, the angrier he felt. The next day, Saturday, he returned to the airport to hire a car. He needed to go to a dojo and practice some. He couldn't use his car or go to his regular one for fear that someone there knew his wife or children and would reveal his presence in town. He called around and found one near the Opryland area, away from their home, that would let him come. He spent Saturday and Sunday sparring and working out at their gym. They were terrific workouts, and he felt confident in his present level of skill. He texted Anna, and she texted back. He noticed her car in their house, and the cameras showed that she was there alone on Saturday but evidently visited her on Sunday. This made him sad. He was about to lose his family. He had not anticipated losing the children. However, with the impending divorce, their family unit would be no more. After a few minutes, his sadness turned into resolute action. He reasoned, well, I guess you have to deal with what life gives you, which was exactly what he intended to do. Mark called Tom on Monday morning, which was unexpected. Tom, I needed to give you a brief call. Anna called Isabella last night. She requested if she might forward her resume to our investment advisors because she felt it was time for a change. Isabella said she'd look into it. What are your thoughts? I understand that this does not excuse the affair, but perhaps she is trying to get away from David for a minute. He considered his family, what he intended to do, and how his life was likely to unfold. She would never be his wife again. She would probably have fewer troubles with the kids if she could get away from David. Yes, go ahead. The harm has already been done, but I believe that will make life easier for everyone. Mark responded, I understand. By Monday afternoon, Rebecca had completed the divorce paperwork, and Tom wondered if the encounter at his house would take place soon. Anna called him that night to say she missed and loved him. He attempted to return the adoration. John also called him, and they had a terrific conversation. He felt Emily had some knowledge of what was going on, despite his protests. But John, unless Emily told him, which she definitely did, everything would catch him off guard. Damn you, Anna, he assumed. Tom did not sleep well that night. Tom worked from the hotel on Tuesday morning and was notified at lunchtime by the GPS on Anna's car, which was leaving her office and heading home. They could ride together, although it may seem hazardous, so he assumed they would go their different paths. His home security cameras detected 2 automobiles pulling into his driveway. He prepared to drive home. He was in no hurry. He expected them to take a few hours. Anna mentioned that they should return at 2 p.m. People will begin searching for them. Andrew said, do not worry about it. I am the owner of the company. Nobody will question me. True, they will not question you, but they may wonder about me. I don't want anyone telling my husband. Why? You don't believe he will divorce you, do you? Another indication that Andrew had no real interest in her besides sex. I don't know. I know he would not want to. He might get away with a one-time blunder, but what if he knew how long? I do not believe he would forgive me. Andrew said, you have kept him in the dark for 3 years. I believe you can manage. Yes, okay, maybe I can if we merely see each other every month or so, as we used to. The previous few weeks have been perilous. I'd like to keep it private so that only we know. Which is why I should at least return to the office. Andrew smiled, thinking of Max knowing and possibly participating soon. Anna was an excellent employee but not indispensable. Her future with the firm may be determined by how she acts in the future. He believed he had her in a good place. She couldn't make a scene at work because it would ultimately get back to her husband. The same thing happened to her, perhaps accusing him of sexual harassment. Even if she attempted the accused possibilities, proving it would be incredibly difficult given how long the romance had lasted. As a result, he felt empowered and in charge of the situation. Tom directed to park down the street, out of sight of the home. Had been there for an hour listening to their screwing and talk via Wi-Fi cameras that were transmitting any movement and noise to the cloud. He heard the comment around 3 years ago and thought himself a fool. Instead of getting down, he utilized that as fuel for his fire. He checked his home's security system on his phone app to ensure that no alarms were set and that no chimes would sound when he opened the rear door. He sneaked in and softly ascended the stairs. Once on the landing, he heard Anna pleading, "Come on, Andrew, I need to get back to the office." Tom walked into their bedroom and said, "That means get the hell out." Anna was shocked to see her husband standing there. She pulled the covers over herself and shouted, "Tom, I thought you were in Charlotte. This is not as it appears." Tom leaned against the door frame and answered, "Now, Anna, you are normally a fairly intelligent woman, but that has to be the stupidest thing you have ever said, except for that dipshit." He could see his wife's face and neck turn bright red at that comment. "Good," he said, "at least you feel some embarrassment." Andrew stated, "Oh well, the tiny husband decided to come and witness how a full-sized man cares for his wife. Do not worry. She claims she only loves you, but we both know she enjoys having sex with me." Andrew, shut up. "That is not true, Tom," she sobbed. Tom said, "I only love you?" Apparently not enough to keep away from this big bum. He mentioned something to Andrew. "Well, I seem to recall your foolish baby son on the ground the other day, struggling to stand up after I beat him with my bare hands. Maybe I should go teach him another lesson for messing with this bitch. Or would you like to take your finest shot at me?" That remark stung Anna. Tom had never mentioned anything about her. The other sentence undoubtedly caught Andrew's attention. I am going to beat you to death in your own home in front of your tiny wife. She wanted a bigger and better man than you, and she received one. Yeah, put your shorts or pants on and meet me in the backyard. I don't want your bum exposed after I call an ambulance to pick you up. As Andrew stood to recover his pants, Tom began laughing at him and pointing to his tool. Anna, you traded me for that baby carrot? Good God, you could say you wanted a taller man, but you certainly weren't interested in him being bigger. Andrew was actually a little bigger, as Anna mentioned, but no man is ever happy when someone makes fun of his tool. Tom wanted Andrew to be angry. Tom left the room without waiting for either of them. Anna was crying even more now, seeing Andrew advance after her husband had gotten her moving. Nonetheless, she had to stop this. She did not want to hurt her husband. She sprang for Andrew but only managed to scratch the tops of his shoulders and back with her fingernails. Surprised by her actions, Andrew instinctively turned and backhanded her hard, knocking her back against the bed's headboard, injuring and stunning her to the point of near unconsciousness. Tom was already running fast down the steps, and Andrew was lucky not to hear Anna being hit. He didn't want his house wrecked during the imminent conflict because Tom had no intention of concluding the situation fast or leaving his home. Tom used a mouthpiece just in case. Then he dashed into his backyard as if he were being pursued in full view of his new security camera facing his backyard. Andrew was not far behind him. Andrew stated, "I'm going to enjoy beating on your Tom. After I finish, I'm going to bring Anna here and screw her into one of the chairs by the pools so you can watch." Tom spoke around the mouthpiece, saying, "I don't care if you screw her or not. She no longer matters to me. What I'm doing here is teaching you how not to screw married ladies. I anticipate you to learn a terrible lesson in the backyard." Andrew sneered and approached Tom, intending to simply grab him and beat the snot out of him. He expected his better reach to be a big help in the battle. As expected, Andrew showed a little more experience than Max by having his hands up in a standard boxing position. With his shirt off, Tom could tell Andrew had massive arms and shoulders that matched his size. Clearly, he worked out in the gym, but the flab around his stomach indicated that he spent most of his time lifting weights and doing minimal cardio except for screwing Anna. Tom would have an advantage in a longer fight, and it was suggested that his midsection might be soft. As long as Tom kept his huge, meaty fists from going too close, he should be fine. With the security system recording, Tom held his hands up as if he did not want to fight. When he harmed Andrew, he intended to make it appear as if it was in self-defense. He only intended to share the footage if Andrew attempted to fabricate a story or press charges. Hopefully, nobody would ever see the video. Andrew charged at Tom, delivering numerous jabs and attempting to grasp him. Tom simply stepped backward to dodge them. Andrew waited for a while, and with Tom's hands raised, Andrew seemed to be the aggressor again. Tom was only waiting for his chance. Andrew would rush to throw punches, and Tom would move out of the way or block them with his arms. Away from the camera, Tom still appeared to be trying to avoid the much larger assailant. Tom could do this all day if he was cautious, but he could immediately see Andrew was breathing heavily. After a few minutes of this dance, Andrew's massive right-handed haymaker appeared, as expected. It looked exactly like Max's but from a superior opponent. Like he did against Max, Tom struck Andrew hard in the right kidney. When Andrew was bending down in pain, he didn't go down. That was no problem for Tom since Andrew was not recuperating rapidly. Tom jumped up and descended, delivering a brutal elbow down into the kidney area with a loud bang. Tom hoped the 12th rib was totally floating now. After the strike, Andrew did go down, this time on his hands and knees. He didn't try to stand up since he couldn't. His side was on fire. How did that little crap strike him so hard? Tom stood waiting for Andrew to stand, as this was being recorded. He needed Andrew to keep appearing to be the aggressor, but this was getting increasingly difficult. Andrew eventually stood and raised his hands as if he planned to box again. Tom could tell he wasn't moving properly. Tom was now loving Andrew throwing blows despite the fact that his ribs hurt. The jabs were not particularly hard. They almost looked for show. He understood that each punch would be unpleasant, especially for someone who was not used to being hit or in agony. Tom could now return jabs as Andrew moved more slowly, but each jab was directed toward the side that had been hit previously or the kidney area on the opposite side. Andrew's grimaces turned to misery as each strike was delivered. Andrew recognized he wasn't going to win the fight. He thought he could get near enough to the smaller man to assault him, grab him, and throw him to the ground since he recognized he wasn't fast enough to hit the quick guy. Also, his side was killing him, and he was having difficulty breathing. In the bedroom, after regaining her composure, Anna put on a robe and dashed down the stairs leading out of the bedroom. She grabbed her phone and dialed 911, reporting that her husband and her boss were fighting in her backyard and had dispatched an ambulance. She froze as she approached her husband's home office and dashed inside. Andrew tried to rush Tom again, but this time he lumbered and was off balance due to his discomfort. Tom tripped him up, and when Andrew landed on his hands and knees, Tom pretended to be the Titan kicker. He wound up and fired the crushing shot he had hoped for. Andrew's reaction was to cry out and curl up into a fetal position, his hands protecting his groin. Too late. Andrew would not be able to get up on his own, and it seemed unlikely that he would do so any time soon. Pity, Tom replied to a whimpering Andrew. Who's the bear now, asshole? Compared to you, I am a Kodiak. You're lucky I won't drag your rear into the water and drown you. Tom sat down about 10 feet away, listening to Andrew whimper and moan in pain. Normally, he would have been horrified to see somebody so terribly harmed. He felt nothing for this man save that a small amount of justice had been done. He waited for the police or ambulance to arrive, hoping Anna had contacted them. He was astonished he hadn't noticed her. Where was she? What happens next? Tom was stunned. Anna was running out of the home with the shotgun in her hands and a black eye, indicating that she was approaching Andrew and aiming the gun. Prompting Tom to jump up and soothe the frantic woman, she yelled, "You won't hurt my husband. I will murder you, do you hear me? You won't hurt my hubby." There's little likelihood of that happening. Tom embraced her close to him, causing the gun to point down to the ground, and he gently slipped the gun out of her hands and placed it on the ground away from them. Several minutes later, a police officer arrived and approached them. She was still saying, "You will not hurt my husband. You won't hurt my hubby." She appeared to be coming undone. The cop removed the shotgun ammunition before examining the injured victim. Speaking with dispatch, he learned that the ambulance was only a few minutes away. Andrew was coughing up blood by this point, which astonished the officer because his only visible features were his crimson sides. There appeared to be some early bruising and significant scratches on his upper back. He spotted Anna's growing black eye and asked her first, "Ma'am, are you okay?" That silenced her grumbling and appeared to rouse her. She responded, he. She then sobbed for a time and pointed at Andrew. "He assaulted me when my husband arrived." Andrew chased him. Tom was confused by the reaction. "Assault?" "It was totally voluntary." The officer inquired, "Ma'am, please hurry to the hospital so that the abuse can be documented." "Okay. Can my hubby take me?" "Sure, but you need to go as soon as possible." "Right now would be preferable," the officer said. "I'll stay here by the attacker until the ambulance arrives." He looked Tom up and down and replied, "You appear unharmed. Let me guess, you are black belt or something?" Tom shook his head and continued, "Or something. I know how to defend myself and my family, but I can assure you that I am far more dangerous than you can possibly imagine." The police officer nodded, and Anna sobbed on her husband's shoulder, knowing Andrew hadn't wounded him. She was the one who had hurt him. He took Anna inside to get dressed for the hospital. She asked if he'd come with her to assist her change, but he said, "No, I don't want to accompany you upstairs because I don't want to view the room where you had been with your lover." Anna appeared to have aged 10 years as she walked down the steps. The ambulance had arrived, and as they walked past the officer, Tom asked, "Can we have his car towed?" "I don't want it here when we return." "Anna does not need to see it." Not that he was very concerned about Anna, he simply wanted it gone. The officer nodded and said, "I'll make sure it's towed. Just focus on getting your wife to the hospital." Tom guided Anna to their car, and they drove silently to the hospital. Anna occasionally glanced at Tom, tears in her eyes, but she said nothing. She knew better than to try to defend herself or explain her actions right now. They arrived at the emergency room, and Tom helped Anna check in. The staff quickly took her back to be examined, and Tom was left in the waiting area. As he sat there, he pondered the surreal events of the past few days. His marriage was shattered, his wife's infidelity exposed, and now, she was likely going to press charges against Andrew for assault. The irony of it all was almost too much to bear. He was filled with a strange mixture of sadness, anger, and relief. A nurse came out after a while and told Tom that he could go back to see Anna. When he entered the room, she looked small and fragile on the hospital bed, a stark contrast to the confident woman he had known. Her eye was already swelling, and she winced as she moved slightly. "Tom," she began, her voice barely above a whisper. "I am so sorry for everything. I never meant for it to get this far." Tom took a deep breath, trying to keep his emotions in check. "Anna, I don't even know where to start. You lied to me, betrayed me, and now this. I need some time to process everything." Tears streamed down her face. "I understand. I don't want to lose you. I love you, Tom. I know it doesn't seem like it, but I do." He shook his head. "You have a funny way of showing it. Right now, I just need to make sure you're okay, and then we need to figure out what comes next." Anna nodded, her sobs subsiding a little. "Thank you for being here, despite everything." The doctor came in shortly after, examined Anna, and confirmed that she had a mild concussion and a fractured cheekbone. They gave her some pain medication and advised her to rest and follow up with a specialist. As Tom drove Anna home, he couldn't help but think about the irony of the situation. Here he was, taking care of the woman who had betrayed him in the most painful way possible. He felt a strange sense of duty, perhaps driven by years of love and commitment, but he knew that things could never be the same. When they arrived home, Anna went to lie down, and Tom went to his office. He needed to get away, even if just mentally, from everything that had happened. He opened his laptop and started to look through the evidence he had gathered, feeling more and more justified in his decision to file for divorce. He was deep in thought when his phone rang. It was Mark. "Hey, Tom. Just wanted to check on you. How are things going?" Tom sighed. "It's been a rough day, Mark. Anna's in bad shape, and I've just been going through everything, trying to make sense of it all." Mark paused for a moment. "I'm sorry, man. I can't imagine what you're going through. Have you spoken to Rebecca yet?" "Yeah, I have. The papers are ready. I'm just trying to figure out the right time to serve them." "Well, whenever you're ready, we're here for you. Isabella and I are here for anything you need." "Thanks, Mark. That means a lot." After the call, Tom sat back and closed his eyes. He knew what he needed to do, but it didn't make it any easier. He decided to wait a few days until Anna was more stable before serving the divorce papers. In the meantime, he would continue gathering his thoughts and preparing for the inevitable confrontation. Over the next few days, Tom kept his distance from Anna, only interacting when necessary. He noticed her attempts to reconcile, but he remained resolute in his decision. He couldn't trust her anymore, and their marriage was beyond repair. On Thursday evening, he called Rebecca. "Rebecca, I think it's time. I need to serve the papers." "Understood, Tom. I'll have them delivered first thing in the morning." The following morning, Anna was served with the divorce papers. She was shocked but not entirely surprised. Tears streamed down her face as she read through the documents, realizing the gravity of her actions and the irreparable damage she had caused. Tom watched her from a distance, feeling a mix of sadness and relief. He knew that this was the beginning of a long and painful journey, but it was the only way forward. The trust was broken, and there was no going back. In the weeks and months that followed, Tom focused on rebuilding his life. He leaned on his friends and family for support, and slowly but surely, he began to find a sense of peace. The road ahead was uncertain, but he was determined to move forward and create a new future for himself. Thanks for tuning in. Now that you've heard this intense story, do you think revenge ever truly brings closure, or does it just lead to more pain? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more stories.